U.S. President Barack Obama calls for a peaceful election in Nigeria. Morocco breaks up a suspected Islamic State-linked terror cell. And Starbucks brews up a controversy about race and faces a swift online backlash. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Well, in a special videotaped message released by the White House, U.S. President Barack Obama has called on the people of Nigeria to stand together in rejecting violence and extremism and instead show their support for a more peaceful, secure, and prosperous future.
Hello. Today I want to speak directly to you, the people of Nigeria. Nigeria is a great nation, and you can be proud of the progress you've made. Together you've won your independence, emerged from military rule, and strengthened democratic institutions. You've strived to overcome divisions and turn Nigeria's diversity into a source of strength. You've worked hard to improve the lives of your families and to build the largest economy in Africa. Now you have a historic opportunity to help write the next chapter of Nigeria's progress by voting in the upcoming elections. For elections to be credible, they must be free, fair, and peaceful. All Nigerians must be able to cast their votes without intimidation or fear. So I call on all leaders and candidates to make it clear to their supporters that violence has no place in democratic elections, and that they will not incite, support, or engage in any kind of violence before, during, or after the votes are counted. I call on all Nigerians to peacefully express your views and to reject the voices of those who call for violence. And when elections are free and fair, it is the responsibility of all citizens to help keep the peace, no matter who wins. Successful elections and democratic progress will help Nigeria meet the urgent challenges you face today. Boko Haram, a brutal terrorist group that kills innocent men, women, and children, must be stopped. Hundreds of kidnapped children deserve to be returned to their families. Nigerians who have been forced to flee deserve to return to their homes. Boko Haram wants to destroy Nigeria and all that you have built. By casting your ballot, you can help secure your nation's progress. I'm told that there's a saying in your country, to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. Today I urge all Nigerians, from all religions, all ethnic groups, and all regions, to come together and keep Nigeria one. And in this task of advancing the security, prosperity, and human rights of all Nigerians, you will continue to have a friend and partner in the United States of America.
Now, for more perspective on Saturday's presidential election, I'm joined by Sylvester Okere of USA Movement for the Buhari Osibanjo ticket. Welcome, Mr. Okere.
Thank you so much.
And from Nashville, Tennessee, we're joined live via Skype by Moses Ochono. He's a professor of African history at Vanderbilt University. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
And let me start with you. The message from President Obama is keep the peace and please keep the country as one. Are you concerned that there could be violence in Nigeria during this election?
Certainly, the rhetoric has been especially heated during these past few weeks. The exchanges have been bitter between the two major political parties, and everybody is scared that there might be trouble during and after the elections. So I think President Obama's message comes at the right time because it tells the major political actors that the world is watching. It also tells them to now tone down the rhetoric, to conduct themselves responsibly. But the fear of violence is there. Yes. But hopefully the elites will come together and recognize that Nigeria is greater than their interests, their various interests.
Now, Sylvester, we have seen violence in past elections. What is different between this election and the past election, which actually pitted the same candidates that we are seeing today?
Yeah, I think with what has happened in the past election, especially the June 12 and so on, should be a lesson for us to learn, especially at this moment. We should be celebrating our democracy than the divisive campaigns everyone is running. Could you imagine a situation where the First Lady incited followers? If anybody mentioned change, he says stone them to death. You saw what happened in Ferguson. Why was it that the stepfather to Brown, everyone accusing him of pointing finger? In a situation where people are following you, you have to be very careful what you said. So people are prone to, take that serious, even though you may not mean it. But for her position to say such a thing, people could be causing havoc down the road. But we hope that doesn't happen, and that's the reason we are calling for security. We don't need soldiers on the street. We don't need policemen to harass or intimidate people, but they should focus on calming the tone.
And actually, the government is saying that, for example, polling stations will be protected not by soldiers, but by policemen. Professor Ochonu, in terms of preparedness, what do you make of where the country is just 3 days before elections?
Well, you can never be 100% prepared, because there are so many unknown factors, so many unpredictable factors that may play a factor in these elections. But I think INEC has to be commended for taking the PVC collection, that is the collection of the permanent voters' cards, to 81%. That's remarkable. That 81% of Nigeria's registered voters have collected their PVCs. You can never have 100% collection rate. So on that score, I think the preparation has been great. I think the area of concern is the security. How much security is there going to be? And if someone decides to cause trouble, or someone decides to perpetuate electoral fraud, will there be enough security to stop them in their tracks?
Yeah.
What if there is trouble after the outcome is announced? Will there be enough security to also nip that in the bud? So that remains a concern.
Yeah. Now, Sylvester, this time around, for some they see this as the last chance for Mr. Buhari. What chance does he stand anyway? He lost last time. What is different that he is bringing to the table?
Well, those saying is the last chance, I remember, is the incumbent. A situation where some of them governors will say that this is a do-or-die affairs. This shouldn't be a do-or-die. This is an election. This is democracy. So they say this is his last chance. But the people themselves, when you watch the rallies, every state he go, you see a lot of crowd following him, because people have tested and found out that the president has failed us. We need a change. You understand? So it's not about what they say, the propaganda. They use religion. They use tribal divisiveness. That is not what we want. We should focus on performance. We should focus on what he did not do and what he would do different.
Yeah.
And that is the main concern.
How about those who say, well, when we remember back, he did crack down on those who were advocating for free speech, for the media. He killed some people. He detained some people. And they have those memories.
Those are the things people say, but some of the things that happened 16 years ago, we should not be looking at it when we are in trouble. And we look at this man as someone who is very patriotic. He really wants to protect his nation. Nigeria has gone beyond all those rhetorics. Nigeria is in pain. Nigeria is bleeding. And if anyone loses focus of what is happening today and keep looking on what happened 12 years ago, 10 years ago, that person is not leading us right. Remember, we have two candidates to choose. And among the two, there is only one that has the best credential and experience to lead Nigeria. Nigeria is like a broken vehicle. We are calling for emergency rescue. That is what it is.
Let's get a quick response from Professor Ochonu. What do you think is going to come out of this election?
It's hard to tell, because, again, there are so many unknown factors. In previous elections, Muhammadu Buhari ran in several elections in the past. In those elections, he appealed to a very narrow audience, a very narrow constituency, mainly in the northern part of the country. This election is different, in the sense that his campaign has been very national, has been focused on appealing to a national electorate. This time around, something else is different. The opposition is bigger. It's a much bigger tent. It's much more better financed. So he has a lot more resources to work with, and so nobody knows. But again, to say this, in Africa, the factor of incumbency is always huge. So it remains to be seen whether Mr. Buhari's increased appeal can overcome the factor of incumbency, the advantage of incumbency.
Professor Chonu, thank you very much for joining us today. And Sylvester, I want to thank you very much also for your perspectives. Well, Professor Chonu is a professor of African history at Vanderbilt University, and Sylvester Okere is the chairman of the USA movement for the Buhari Osibancho ticket. Well, we take a break. Well, we want to know what you think about the stories we cover now. Join the conversation on Facebook, and the address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, coming up, Moroccan authorities bust up a militant cell with ties to the Islamic State extremist group. Stay with us.
A historic presidential campaign in Nigeria winds down, and Voice of America is there. Join host Shaka Sali and VOA's Straight Talk Africa this Saturday for special day of coverage of Nigeria's historic elections. You'll get on-the-ground reports from VOA journalists in Nigeria, in-depth discussion and expert analysis of the most important election issues. Straight Talk Africa's special Nigeria Decides election coverage, a commitment to Africa from Voice of America.
Wherever you are, Voice of America is on air, reaching more than 130 million weekly, worldwide, in more than 40 languages. Online, social media, and breaking news from around the world. On the go, dozens of new features on popular platforms with new apps and trending topics. Voice of America, on air, online, on the go.
Well, the crisis in Yemen is growing by the day. President Abdel Rabah Mansour Hadi fled his palace in the main southern city of Aden Wednesday as Shia Houthi rebels, backed by army units, continued their rapid advance towards the city. Yemen officials say unidentified warplanes targeted the presidential complex in Aden, with the anti-aircraft batteries returning fire. Officials say President Hadi is at a safe location in the city. On Tuesday, the Shia rebels fired bullets and tear gas to disperse thousands of protesters, demanding they withdraw from a southwestern province, killing at least 6 demonstrators, wounding scores more. Smoke filled the air as tires burned in the streets of Taiz. Thousands rallied near the special forces camp to protest against the rebels. Now, the Houthis seized the capital Sana'a last September. While Moroccan authorities say they have dismantled a militant cell linked to Islamic State that was planning to kill public figures and security personnel. During raids in several Moroccan cities on Sunday, security forces captured 13 men and confiscated weapons, computers, and other materials from their hideouts. VOA's Latza Hoke reports.
Officials in the Moroccan city of Saleh showed reporters pistols, plastic handcuffs, computers and other items collected during raids in Marrakesh, Agadir and other places throughout the country.
This terrorist cell was dismantled by the Central Bureau of Judicial Investigation, which is a new judicial part of the Moroccan Domestic Intelligence Service. The cell was active in several cities. It was preparing a terrorist plan to undermine the safety and security of the country.
Security forces detained 13 suspects ages 19 to 37 who they say were planning to create an Islamic State affiliate in the North African kingdom.
This terrorist network had targeted public figures as well as political and military figures. After following members, we learned that they had sworn allegiance to the Islamic State and to its leader, Baghdadi. They called their cell Islamic State in the Extreme Maghreb, grandsons of Yusuf bin Tashfin.
Last week, gunmen attacked a popular museum in neighboring Tunisia, killing 23 people, mostly foreign tourists. The Bardo National Museum in the capital Tunis reopened for officials only on Tuesday. It will reopen to the public on Sunday. Many foreign visitors continue to come despite last week's violence.
We decided not to cancel our trip, and today we have even decided to deviate from our itinerary to come to the museum, just to take a picture and express our solidarity with Tunisians. Just a few weeks ago, we had similar attempts by terrorists in Canada. This mustn't stop us.
Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper announced Tuesday that his government will expand its military mission against Islamic State. It will be the second NATO member, along with the United States, to conduct airstrikes against militant positions in Syria. They also have been hit by jet attacks from Jordan and the United Arab Emirates.
The government recognizes that ISIL's power base, indeed the so-called caliphate's capital, is in Syria. ISIL's fighters and much of its heavier equipment are moving freely across the Iraqi border into Syria for better protection in part against our airstrikes. In our view, ISIL must cease to have any safe haven in Syria.
Tunisia and Morocco are popular tourist destinations on the North African Mediterranean coast. Hundreds of people from these countries are known to have gone to fight for Islamic State in Syria. Some of them are now returning home, bringing with them their jihadist agenda. Zlatisa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in the opposition-held territory of South Sudan, a population under pressure from more than 15 months of conflict remains determined to hold off government forces after the recent collapse of peace talks. VOA's Gabe Joslo reports from the opposition stronghold of Lankien.
On the run from conflict, these families have sought refuge near the marshland in Lankien, an area under the control of the rebel opposition. Almost entirely from the ethnic Nuer community, many came from the towns of Malakal and Bor, having witnessed some of the worst fighting between rebel and government forces since the war broke out in December 2013. They are among some 1.5 million internally displaced across South Sudan. Running low on patience, 67-year-old Chuanbie Duap is losing faith that the crisis will be resolved anytime soon.
I have no hope. I don't know when this fighting will end or not. It all depends on the influence of people outside of here.
Lankien, in northeastern Jonglei State, is a stronghold for the opposition, which controls territory up to the Ethiopian border. The people who fled here have mixed in with the local community. There are no overcrowded camps like in other parts of the country, but their presence is putting a strain on local resources. Nirol County Commissioner Peter Thier says because this is seen as a safe place, there are now more IDPs than residents.
Because they are coming here for the safety. Here in Nirol, we have a so-called natural defense. One thing is a river, in which there is no access for the government to cross the river.
But government troops are not far away, and they control most of the major trading routes. While the area has stayed peaceful so far, there are concerns the failure of recent peace talks between the government of President Salva Kiir and the opposition led by his former deputy Riek Machar could inflame the conflict. Back in Juba, South Sudan Information Minister Michael Makwei insists the government is committed to continuing talks despite its apparent military advantage.
It is not difficult for the government today to say no more negotiation, but we are going on an offensive. And if the government so decides, it can easily flush out the rebels within the shortest possible period. But we are not for that because we don't want to lose more lives.
Brigadier General William Kual Chol of the opposition says his forces also are not interested in escalating the conflict and stand ready only to protect their people.
So the operation is to defend ourselves from the enemy, because we are not here to aggress anybody. And why I'm here is not my choice. It is the choice of those operators, the regime of Salva Kiir in Juba.
Both sides have been accused of committing serious violations during the conflict, including ethnically targeted killings. And despite their apparent goodwill, deep distrust persists and low-level fighting continues. A vulnerable population, losing patience and hope, remains stuck in the middle. Gabe Joslo, VOA News, Lankien, South Sudan.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Starbucks pulls the plug on a controversial initiative. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines.
In Nigeria, as troops bring clothing and goods for the remaining residents of Damasak, reports emerge of more than 400 women and children still held captive. In Tunisia, after the killing of 21 individuals in a jihadist attack, thousands of Tunisians demonstrate in support of the Bardo victims. In Sierra Leone, Rosanda village in the northern sector of the country is placed under quarantine to prevent a further widespread of Ebola. Finally, in Sudan, wrestlers practice moves under the watchful eyes of their Japanese coach for the Tokyo Olympics.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Starbucks finds itself in hot water for talking about race. Now, could this be the biggest marketing fiasco of the year so far? Well, social media was set ablaze last week when Starbucks encouraged its baristas to talk about race with its customers. Many customers took objection to interactions. Now, they were offended that the brand and its employees presumed to have the right to talk to them about such a sensitive issue. On Sunday, Starbucks ditched its Race Together campaign. Now, the company will now go back to limiting its discussions of black and white to coffee and milk. Well, next up, an unusual trend is sweeping Europe. While this might seem like child's play, it's most definitely for grown-ups. Switching off and coloring in is now a European hobby practiced by millions, and sales of coloring books are already growing in the Far East. So what's the draw? Enthusiasts say coloring helps them turn off their screens and switch their minds away from the distractions of the internet. It's believed the passion for adult coloring books started in France and spread rapidly. Well, and finally, are you looking for a perfect Easter gift for that chocoholic in your life? Well, do you have a huge wad of cash burning a hole in your pocket? Well, if you have $49,000 to spare, then the website veryfirst.com may have what you didn't know you needed. They are selling a 38-centimeter high Easter bunny, which has been hand-carved from a block of 75% Tanzania origin chocolate and two 1.7-carat round brilliant diamond eyes. Now, the chocolate bunny took 2 days to carve and weighs around 5 kilograms. That means that it contains about 584,000 calories. If the buyer can resist the urge to devour it, well, the bunny can be displayed for 2 years if its temperature is regulated to around 16 degrees, and that is what is trending today. Well, cars are usually a big expense that people have to save up for, but most Ethiopians will never be able to afford a car because of tax regulations. Matt van der Wolf reports for VOA from Addis Ababa.
Cars in Ethiopia are not only very expensive, they actually never lose their value. Cars that are more than 20 years old can easily cost $10,000 or more. So being in the Ethiopian car business is very lucrative. It's also good for hobbyist Bayo Siyum. He has a full-time job, but he enjoys fixing old cars like these ancient Volkswagen Beetles. Bayo repairs the cars in his spare time, and once he is done, he can sell them for $5,000.
This car is 1971. When I first bought it from someone, it was not been driven for about 4 years, and then by the time I saw it, they were almost looking someone to take it away for free, but I paid a little money, maybe 1,000 birr, which is $50.
With old cars already going for such a high price, newer cars cost tens of thousands of dollars, meaning that in a country where a third of the population lives below the poverty line, only few can afford a car, says car broker Getanet Eshetu.
ነጋዴዎች ከውጪ ያመጧቸዋል ከዛ ዲያስፖራዎች ከዚህ ይቀበሏቸዋል ያላቸው ማለት ነው
Businessmen bring the cars from outside, and the diaspora with money take over the cars here in Ethiopia. People with low income will probably never buy a car until their income goes up, so poor people can't buy.
The reason for the high price of personal cars? Taxes. Almost all cars are imported, and customs will add up 5 different kinds of taxes, meaning that for every personal car, taxes start from 125% of the value up to 244% of the value. You will likely pay more in taxes for a personal car than for the vehicle itself. Ahmed Yassin of the Ethiopian Revenues and Customs Authority says there's a reason for the tax policy.
The luxury goods should be taxed higher than the consumable goods, and these automobiles are categorized as a luxury goods. So this is the main reason. And the another reason is government has to collect revenue to cover the cost of expenditures which are expended for the developmental workers.
Different rules and lower taxes apply for cars used for industry or business. But while one might be stuck in traffic jams in the capital city, the overall number of personal cars was only just above 100,000 in the year 2012, for a population of more than 90 million people. Marta van der Wolf for VOA News, Addis Ababa.
A historic presidential campaign in Nigeria winds down, and Voice of America is there. Join host Shaka Sali and VOA's Straight Talk Africa this Saturday for special day of coverage of Nigeria's historic elections. You'll get on-the-ground reports from VOA journalists in Nigeria, in-depth discussion and expert analysis of the most important election issues. Straight Talk Africa's special Nigeria Decides election coverage, a commitment to Africa from Voice of America. Nigeria Decides 2015. The final hours of the presidential campaign for Nigeria. What happens there matters throughout Africa. VOA News is ready with the largest team of international journalists in Nigeria and surrounding countries. Turn to Voice of America for the facts. Nigeria Decides 2015 on radio with Daybreak Africa, Africa News Tonight, and Nightline Africa. On television with Africa 54 and Straight Talk Africa. On the web at voanews.com. Special coverage of Nigeria presidential election voting begins this Saturday, with results as the votes are counted, and on the web to show you where the counting stands and where the votes are coming from. Nigeria Decides 2015, a commitment to Africa from Voice of America.
And that's it. Good night.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On VOA.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent.
We are able to touch on things that are important to people on an everyday basis. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. In a lively half hour, news, sports, health, lifestyle information, comments from our viewers. Africa 54, the best for Africa, about Africa. Join us only on VOA.